Los Angeles once again became the center of attention with a luxurious charity auction held at a famous hotel in the heart of the city. The event brought together the most influential people: actors, businessmen, designers, and politicians. This event was not only aimed at raising funds to support orphanages, but also became an opportunity for the rich to show their luxury and status. The guests arrived one by one in shiny black cars, to the flashes of cameras and applause of journalists. The atmosphere of the event exuded elegance. Huge crystal chandeliers, expensive decorations, and tables covered with the finest fabrics. Among this glamorous crowd, Keanu Reeves appeared almost unnoticed. His appearance caused a slight surprise, but not because of his fame. In the world of luxury, he stood out for his modesty. Dressed in a simple dark suit without expensive accessories, he looked unusual against the background of bright dresses and sparkling jewelry. He avoided the red carpet and quietly entered the hall, taking a seat in the far corner. Some of the guests noticed him, but most were busy with their own narcissism. Not everyone reacted positively to his presence. Among the guests was a woman who was famous for her arrogant nature and love of attention. She was wearing a luxurious dress by a famous designer, adorned with diamonds that probably cost more than the average person's annual income. Her loud laughter echoed throughout the room as she chatted with her companions, occasionally throwing sideways glances at Keanu. She was interested in his restraint, but instead of respecting his modesty, she decided to turn it into an object of ridicule. "Does he know what he's getting himself into?" she said sarcastically, addressing her companion, but in a way that everyone around her could hear. The guests laughed, supporting her mocking tone. Her words sounded loud and confident, as if she expected Keanu to respond, or at least look in her direction. But he did not react. His expression remained calm, as if he hadn't even heard her words. This indifference only irritated the woman more. She began to make up new remarks, each one louder than the last. Other guests watched the scene, not knowing how to react. Some tried to avoid her gaze, some laughed lightly, but most felt somewhat uncomfortable. Everyone realized that this situation was not unfolding in the woman's favor, even if she did not realize it yet. Despite the tense atmosphere, Keanu remained unfazed. He sat quietly and looked at the stage, where they were already preparing to start the auction. His silence said more than any words. He didn't try to defend himself or answer. He simply didn't need to. This silence began to change the mood in the room. The guests, who had initially supported the woman with their laughter, began to doubt her case. The more she spoke, the more she lost support. When the host finally announced the start of the auction, all eyes were on the stage. But the tension created by the woman's mockery was still in the air. It seemed that this evening was going to be very different than expected. When the host solemnly announced the start of the charity auction, everyone's attention turned to the stage. The auctioneers began to bring in the first lots: paintings, antique jewelry, and unique pieces of art created specifically for the event. Guests enthusiastically looked at the lots, raising cards with their bids. The atmosphere was filled with excitement and competition. However, the tension created by the rich woman's taunts was still in the air. The first lots went off without any surprises. The woman who mocked Keanu actively participated in the auction. Her confidence was evident in every gesture. She raised her bids with such ease, as if the money didn't matter to her. Each of her victories was accompanied by a satisfied smile and approving glances from her companions. It was as if she wanted to show that she was the main star of the evening. Meanwhile, Keanu remained calm. He didn't participate in the bidding and seemed to just watch what was happening. His neutrality was beginning to irritate the woman even more. She couldn't understand why he had come to the event at all if he didn't intend to buy anything or take an active part. Her anger was growing by the minute, but she tried to hide it behind a mask of confidence. The culmination of the auction was an exceptional lot, an old painting that was considered one of the most valuable in the collection. Its authorship was attributed to a famous 19th century artist, and the history of the painting was shrouded in mystery. The host spoke in detail about the value of this work of art, emphasizing that it was not just a painting, but a symbol of the city's heritage. The guests stood in anticipation when he announced the starting price. The woman didn't hesitate and was the first to raise her card, her voice clear as she announced the amount of money she had bid. This caused applause and cheers among the guests. She turned her head toward Keanu, expecting him to remain indifferent again. But instead, he suddenly raised his hand. The room fell silent. No one expected Keanu to decide to participate in the auction, let alone to do so suddenly. The host, a little confused, repeated his bid, which was much higher than the previous one. The guests looked at each other in surprise, and the woman, who had felt like the absolute leader just a moment ago, looked shocked. She tried to hide her surprise behind a sarcastic smile and raised the bet again. What started out as a normal auction quickly turned into a tense confrontation. Each new move Keanu made confused the woman. Her voice became more and more strained, and her movements became abrupt. She was no longer smiling confidently, her face flushed with emotion. At the same time, Keanu remained completely calm. His bets were clear and decisive, as if he knew exactly why he was doing it. The guests watched this competition with fascination. Some even started cheering Keanu on, applauding every time he outbid the woman. His calmness and restraint inspired respect, while her aggressive behavior began to cause only irritation. The tension in the room was growing by the minute. Eventually, when the sum reached unheard of heights, the woman lowered her hand. Her face reflected the defeat she was trying to hide behind her feigned indifference. The host solemnly announced that the lot went to Keanu Reeves. The audience erupted in applause, which was addressed not only to his victory, but also to his dignity and calmness with which he overcame this confrontation. Keanu went on stage to accept the painting, but instead of just picking it up, he took the microphone. His voice was quiet but confident as he thanked everyone for their support. He then explained why he decided to buy the painting. It was not for him. He intended to give it to a local orphanage, where it would become a symbol of beauty and inspiration for children who need it most. Keanu's words evoked deep emotions in everyone present. People gave a standing ovation, and some could not even hold back their tears. The woman who had previously mocked him sat silently, avoiding the eyes of others. Her pride was shattered, and she realized that this evening had been a lesson for her. As the room filled with thunderous applause, Keanu stood calmly on stage, holding the microphone in his hands. His modesty and confidence made an unforgettable impression on everyone present. The painting that became the center of attention that evening was now in his possession. But no one could have predicted what he would do next. His action had already changed the atmosphere of the event, but the words he spoke left an even deeper mark. Keanu thanked the guests for their support and spoke about the significance of this painting for him personally. He explained that this painting reminds him of the importance of hope, beauty, and support. But most importantly, it was meant to be a symbol for the children in the orphanage, who often feel abandoned. His plan was to donate the painting to one of the local orphanages in Los Angeles, where it would become part of an art education program. The guests listened with full attention. His words made many of them think about how important even small gestures of kindness are. People in the audience began to reconsider their own actions, and even those who had come to the auction for the sake of status felt that their participation could make a real difference. After his speech, Keanu handed over the painting to the event organizers, asking them to help with its delivery to the orphanage. He emphasized that he does not need media attention and does not want his act to be used for self-promotion. His only goal was to help the children and give them something that would inspire them to have a better life. When Keanu came down from the stage, people began to approach him to thank him for his generosity and kindness. Some guests even offered their help to support his initiative. But Keanu himself remained as humble as he had been at the beginning of the evening. He listened carefully to everyone, answering calmly and sincerely. His reluctance to be the center of attention only further emphasized his true nobility. Against the backdrop of all this, the rich woman who had mocked Keanu at the beginning of the evening sat silently. Her face no longer radiated confidence. She looked confused, as if she realized that her own behavior that evening was the antithesis of what Keanu had demonstrated. She avoided the eyes of the other guests and clearly regretted her actions. The next day, news of the charity auction spread throughout the city. The media focused their attention on Keanu's action, emphasizing his modesty and the true purpose of his participation in the event. The painting, which became the symbol of the evening, was solemnly handed over to the orphanage, and it was a great event for the children and educators. They expressed their gratitude, saying that this gift would not only bring them aesthetic joy, but also serve as a reminder that they were not forgotten. However, the story did not end there. Keanu's act inspired many other people to do good deeds. Several businessmen who attended the auction decided to create a special fund to support orphanages in Los Angeles. They announced this on the day of the auction, emphasizing that their decision was a direct result of what they had seen and felt that evening. Keanu, on the other hand, remained in the shadows, avoiding unnecessary attention. He continued to live his life, but his act became a legend that inspired many. People began to talk about how even one person can change the world around them if they act with kindness and sincerity. The woman who tried to humiliate him also did not stay away from this transformation. A few days after the auction, she anonymously made a large donation to one of the orphanages, admitting her mistakes. Although she never openly apologized to Keanu, her actions spoke for themselves. It was her way of atoning for what had happened. The story of the charity auction in Los Angeles left a deep mark. It was a reminder that true power is not in money or status, but in the ability to do good. And Keanu Reeves once again proved that great deeds can be born out of the simplest desire to help. The story of the charity auction in Los Angeles continued to take on a life of its own, spreading both among locals and far beyond the city. Keanu Reeves' act has become a symbol that humanity and kindness can win even in a world often dominated by ostentation and ego. But Keanu himself was not looking for fame or recognition. He continued to go about his business, avoiding unnecessary attention. However, the results of his actions affected many people. The orphanage, which received a rare painting, became the center of attention not only for the local media, but also for the public. The painting took a place of honor in the main hall of the home. The children who lived there listened with enthusiasm to stories about the artist, how the painting came to them, and about the person who made it possible. The teachers organized themed classes on art, using the painting as a source of inspiration. Among the children, there was one girl named Sophie who was particularly fond of the painting. She could sit in front of it for hours, making sketches in her notebook. Sophie was quiet and shy, but after the painting appeared in the house, she began to change. She told her caregivers that she dreamed of becoming an artist and creating works that would inspire others as much as she had been inspired by this painting. Inspired by this event, the orphanage management decided to launch a program to support talented children. They asked local artists, musicians, and writers to conduct master classes for the children. Thanks to the financial support that started coming in after the auction, they were able to provide the children with everything they needed to develop their talents. This project attracted the attention of not only patrons, but also ordinary people who wanted to help. Some of them came as volunteers, others sent donations. All of this became possible because one man decided to do something special without thinking about profit or recognition. Meanwhile, the wealthy woman who was the main antagonist of the evening tried to make sense of what had happened. Her life had always been full of luxury and competition for status. But after that evening, she began to reconsider her values. Her words and actions against Keanu no longer seemed justified. She felt she had to make a change. She decided to act quietly, without making too much publicity. A few weeks after the auction, she anonymously donated a significant amount of money to support orphanages in Los Angeles. She also began participating in volunteer programs where she worked with children. Her change was not instantaneous, but gradual, and this process helped her find real satisfaction in helping others. Amid these changes, Keanu continued to be a source of inspiration. His story attracted attention not only in Los Angeles, but all over the world. His act showed that even one evening can change the fate of many people. People began to follow his example, organizing their own charity events, helping those in need, and striving to do good deeds without expectation of gain. One day, Keanu was approached by a group of students from a local university. They offered to create a documentary about the charity auction and its impact. At first, Keanu was hesitant because he didn't want the limelight. But when the students explained that the purpose of the film was to promote good deeds and inspire others, he agreed. The movie became a success and was shown not only in the United States, but also abroad. Thanks to this movie, even more people learned about Keanu's story and the auction. His message that everyone can change the world if they act with kindness became the leitmotif of many discussions and events. Keanu's act became not only an example of nobility, but also a driving force for change in society. Sophie, a girl from an orphanage, was able to enter an art school thanks to the support program. Her first solo exhibition took place a few years after that event, and one of the centerpieces was her interpretation of a painting that Keanu had once given her. She called it Light of Hope, and it became a symbol of how one good deed can change everything. After the exhibition, Sophie wrote to Keanu to thank him for his inspiration. She wrote that his act taught her to believe in her dreams and work towards achieving them. Keanu's response was simple but touching. He wrote that he was proud to be a part of her journey and that it was stories like hers that reminded him of the importance of doing good deeds. This story remained in people's memories for a long time. It proved that change starts with small steps and that each of us can become a source of light for others. Keanu Reeves, without seeking fame or recognition, became a symbol of humanity and inspiration, showing that even in the world of glitter and luxury, true beauty is always found in the simplicity of kindness. Years have passed since that unforgettable charity auction in Los Angeles, but its impact has continued to spread, changing the lives of many people. Keanu Reeves' act, which demonstrated the power of kindness and humanity, remained a source of inspiration for the public. But what happened after the auction turned this case into a real legend. The painting that Keanu donated to the orphanage became a symbol of hope and a new beginning. The children called it the Light of Change, and it took pride of place in their main hall. The teachers often used it as part of their curriculum, telling the children that even one good deed can change the whole world. The orphanage started art classes, where children could not only develop their talents, but also study the history of art, using this painting as a source of inspiration. One of the children in the home, a boy named Mark, was particularly fond of art. He spent hours in front of the painting, studying its details and trying to understand the artist's technique. Over time, Mark began to paint his own works, drawing inspiration from what he saw. As he grew older, his talent caught the attention of teachers, and thanks to the support of the orphanage, he received a scholarship to attend art school. A few years later, Mark opened his first exhibition, and the centerpiece was his own work titled Thank You for the Light. The painting was dedicated to Keanu Reeves and all the people who believed in him. Mark was just one of many children whose lives were changed that evening. The Talent Support Program, which was established after the auction, has expanded to include dozens of orphanages in different regions. Volunteers, inspired by Keanu's example, held workshops, provided children with art supplies, and organized exhibitions of their work. These initiatives not only helped children find their vocation, but also showed them that they were not alone, that there were people who were ready to support them in their dreams. Meanwhile, Keanu himself continued to stay out of the spotlight. He turned down numerous offers to give interviews or participate in advertising campaigns related to his charity. For him, it was not important to be praised, but rather that his actions bring real change. However, his modesty only increased respect for him. People saw him as an example of genuine kindness that did not require recognition. One day, Keanu received a letter from the same woman who had mocked him at the auction. In the letter, she thanked him for the lesson he had taught her that evening. She admitted that her life changed after that incident. She became actively involved in charity work, supporting orphanages and organizing fundraising events. Although she was ashamed of her behavior, she was grateful that the incident helped her rethink her values. Subsequently, the woman offered to cooperate with the foundation that emerged after the auction and, together with Keanu, organized a new series of events aimed at supporting children from disadvantaged families. Her story became another proof that even those who make mistakes can change and start doing good. The story continued to inspire. People from different parts of the world learned about this case and started their own initiatives. Some organized charity concerts, some opened schools for children, and some simply started with small but important acts. The echoes of that auction spread like waves on water, touching the lives of thousands of people. A few years after the auction, a new modern complex was built on the site of the orphanage that received the painting, equipped with everything necessary for the development of children. Keanu was invited to its opening, but as always, he remained modest. He visited the children, talked to them, told them stories from his life, but avoided making official speeches. It was more important for him to see the joy in their eyes than to receive applause. The complex was named the House of Light, which became a symbol of everything that was achieved thanks to one evening and one good deed. There was an inscription on the wall in the main hall. "The light is in each of us," which reminded everyone who came in that each person can make the world a better place. Keanu Reeves will be remembered not only as a talented actor, but also as a man whose kindness changed the lives of many. His act proved that even in a world full of challenges and difficulties, there is a place for humanity and light. And the story of the Los Angeles auction became a legend told to adults and children alike to remind us that kindness always has the power to change lives.